I invited my boss instead of you. He needs the break more, Tessa said, stirring her coffee like she was discussing the weather. You can go some other time. I stopped mid-bite of my toast and stared at my wife of 12 years. The beach house reservation confirmation sat on the kitchen counter between us, $8,500 for a week at the Emerald Coast Resort, non-refundable. I'd booked it 3 months ago for our anniversary. You what? I managed. Jared's been under tremendous stress with the Morrison account. The beach will help him decompress. She didn't even look up from her phone. Besides, you hate sand. That wasn't the point, and she knew it. I'd specifically requested that week off from my commercial real estate firm. My assistant, Ben, had rescheduled 4 property showings. I'd been looking forward to actually relaxing for once. Tessa, I paid for that trip. For us. And I'm very grateful. She finally glanced up, her expression perfectly neutral. But Jared really needs this right now. You understand how important my career is? Important enough to spend my money on her boss, apparently. Jared Solace, 6 feet of smug entitlement wrapped in expensive suits. He'd hired Tessa at his marketing firm 4 years ago, despite her having 0 relevant experience. Created a position just for her, according to the company directory. When do you leave? I asked. Tomorrow morning. We're driving down together. She smiled brightly. You're being so understanding about this, Miles. Most husbands would throw a fit. Most husbands wouldn't have married Tessa Caldwell. I'd learned early in our relationship that arguing with her was like trying to negotiate with a hurricane. She'd wear you down with circular logic and emotional manipulation until you forgot what you were fighting about. But this felt different. This felt calculated. Sure, I said. Have fun. The surprise flickered across her face so quickly I almost missed it. She'd expected resistance, wanted it maybe. Instead, I finished my breakfast and went to work like nothing had changed. My office overlooked downtown Tampa's financial district. 23rd floor, corner view, the kind of space that impressed clients. I'd built my real estate business from nothing, started with a borrowed desk and a used car, worked my way up to million-dollar commercial deals. Ben knocked and entered without waiting for permission. My assistant was 26, gay, and had 0 filter between his brain and his mouth. Your wife just posted something weird on social media, he announced, dropping into the chair across from my desk. I pulled up Tessa's profile. The post was already gaining likes and comments. Taking time to prioritize my mental health and step away from negativity. Sometimes we need space to grow. Grateful for supportive company during this journey. Beach therapy starts now. The photo showed her and Jared loading luggage into his BMW. She was wearing the sundress I'd bought her for our last anniversary. Supportive company? Ben raised an eyebrow. That's not you in the picture. She invited her boss instead, says he needs the break more. Ben's jaw dropped. She took your vacation and gave it to another man? Apparently. Miles, that's... He paused, choosing his words carefully. That's really messed up. My phone buzzed with text messages. Our mutual friends had seen the post and were asking questions. I ignored them. Ben, remember that forensic accountant you recommended last month? Sandra Chen? Yeah, she's excellent. Why? Schedule me a meeting. Today, if possible. What kind of meeting? The kind where I find out exactly where my money's been going. Ben's expression shifted from confusion to understanding. Oh no. You think she's been... I think I've been very trusting for a very long time. Maybe too trusting. He was already reaching for his phone. I'll call Sandra right now. The rest of the morning crawled by. I couldn't concentrate on lease agreements or property valuations. Every few minutes, someone else would text or call about Tessa's post. Her mother left a voicemail asking if everything was all right. Her best friend Maya sent a message with way too many heart emojis, saying she hoped I was taking care of myself during this difficult time. Difficult time? They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. Sandra Chen arrived at 2 o'clock. Forensic accountant, former FBI financial crimes investigator, the kind of person who could trace a dollar bill through 6 shell companies and 3 offshore accounts. "What exactly are we looking for?" she asked, settling into the conference room chair. "Irregularities, transfers I didn't authorize, money going places it shouldn't." "How far back?" "Start with the last 2 years, see what you find." She nodded, making notes. "I'll need access to all your accounts, business and personal. Credit cards, investment portfolios, everything. Whatever you need." "Mr. Relin, can I ask what prompted this? In my experience, people don't hire forensic accountants on a whim." I showed her Tessa's social media post. Sandra studied it for a long moment. "She's at a beach resort with another man, using what appears to be your vacation reservation, and posting about stepping away from negativity. By negativity, she presumably means you. That's about the size of it. And you suspect financial irregularities as well? Call it intuition. When someone's comfortable taking your vacation, they might be comfortable taking other things." Sandra closed her laptop. "I'll have preliminary findings by Monday, full analysis by Wednesday." "Perfect." She paused at the door. "Mr. Relin? In my experience, when wives start publicly distancing themselves while simultaneously spending their husband's money on other men, the financial irregularities are usually extensive." "How extensive?" "Extensive enough to fund a new life, with someone else." After she left, I sat in the conference room staring out at the Tampa skyline. 12 years of marriage, 12 years of working 60-hour weeks to build something meaningful, 12 years of coming home to a woman who apparently saw me as nothing more than a funding source. My phone buzzed. Text from Tessa. "Made it to the resort safely. The suite is gorgeous. Thank you for being so mature about this arrangement." I stared at the message for a full minute before responding. "Enjoy yourselves." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. She was typing something, then thinking better of it. Finally, "Love you." "Love you too," I typed back. But as I hit send, I realized something had shifted inside me. The automatic response, the reflexive affection, it felt hollow now. Like going through the motions of a dance I'd forgotten the steps to. Ben appeared in the doorway. "Your 4 o'clock is here. The Henderson property?" "Right, send them in." I spent the rest of the afternoon reviewing commercial lease terms and pretending everything was normal. But my mind kept drifting to Sandra Chen's words. Extensive enough to fund a new life? With someone else. That evening, I drove home to our empty house in Westchase. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, swimming pool, perfectly manicured lawn. The American dream, or at least the Tampa version of it. I poured myself a scotch and sat in my study, surrounded by the books and awards that marked my professional success. Everything I'd worked for, everything I'd built. And my wife was at the beach with another man, probably planning her exit strategy. My laptop chimed with an email notification. Tessa's account was still logged in from when she'd used my computer last week. The email was from Jared. Subject line, "Tonight." I shouldn't have opened it. Invasion of privacy, violation of trust, all that. But my finger clicked before my conscience could stop it. "Can't wait to have you all to myself for a full week. Miles has no idea what he's missing. Or maybe he does, and he's just too weak to do anything about it. Either way, his loss is my gain. See you at dinner. Wear the red dress, the one he bought you." I read it twice, then a third time. The casual cruelty of it. The assumption that I was some kind of pathetic pushover who'd just accept whatever scraps of respect they threw my way. I was still staring at the screen when another email arrived. This one from Tessa to someone named Maya. Phase 1 complete. Miles barely reacted when I told him about the vacation switch. Jared was right. He's too passive to cause problems. By the time we get back, I'll have enough documentation to make the separation look like his fault. The therapist will back up the emotional neglect angle, and Sandra's already identified the asset protection strategies. This is actually going to be easier than we thought. My hand tightened around the Scotch glass. Sandra. There was another Sandra involved in this? Not the forensic accountant I'd hired, obviously. Someone else. Someone helping my wife plan her escape. I scrolled through more emails, my anger building with each revelation. Months of planning, coordination with multiple people, a systematic campaign to position me as the villain in our marriage while she and Jared played the star-crossed lovers. But the most damning email was from 3 weeks ago. Tessa to Jared. Miles suspects nothing. He's so buried in work that I could probably move out entirely and he wouldn't notice for a week. The money transfers are complete. $215,000 moved to the investment account under my name only. If he tries to freeze assets during the divorce, we'll already have enough to start over wherever we want. $215,000, my money, transferred without my knowledge or consent. I closed the laptop and finished my scotch in one burning gulp. Then I walked to the kitchen and opened a bottle of wine, the expensive Bordeaux Tessa had been saving for a special occasion. Tonight felt special enough. As I poured the wine, I made a quiet decision. Tessa and Jared thought they were playing chess while I played checkers. They thought I was too weak, too passive, too buried in work to notice their little game. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Saturday morning arrived gray and humid, typical Florida weather that couldn't decide between sunshine and storms. I'd spent Friday evening making phone calls and sending carefully worded emails. Amazing how much you could accomplish when you had the right motivation. The first call had been to Carson Webb, my college roommate and current Tampa police detective. We'd stayed close over the years. He was probably my only real friend, the kind of guy who'd help you move a body without asking questions. Not that I needed a body moved, but the principle stood. Miles, what's wrong? You sound weird. Define weird. Like you're planning something that's going to get you in trouble. Carson knew me too well. Remember Tessa's parents' anniversary party tonight? Yeah, Linda's been looking forward to it all week. 35 years of marriage, right? Right, I need a favor. What kind of favor? The technical kind, audio-visual equipment, and maybe some moral support. There was a long pause. What did she do? How do you know she did something? Because you're talking like a man with a plan, and in my experience, men only make plans like this when their wives have really screwed them over. I told him about the vacation, the emails, the money transfers. Carson listened without interrupting, his cop instincts kicking in. 200 grand? Miles, that's felony theft. I know, but I'm not interested in criminal charges. Not yet, anyway. Then what are you interested in? Justice. The social kind. Another pause. You want to embarrass her publicly. I want to tell the truth publicly. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm sitting, it sounds like revenge. Maybe it is. Would that bother you? Carson laughed, a sound with no humor in it. After what she did? Hell no. What do you need? The second call had been to Ben, who turned out to have unexpected talents in the digital realm. You want me to what? He'd asked. Create a presentation, professional quality, something that tells a story. What kind of story? The kind that starts with a loving wife and devoted boss, and ends with fraud and adultery. Oh my God, yes. I live for this kind of drama. Send me everything. By Saturday afternoon, we had what we needed. Carson arrived at 5 with a laptop and portable projector. Ben showed up 20 minutes later with a flash drive and a grin that could have powered the house. Wait until you see what I put together, he said. It's like a PowerPoint presentation from hell. The Caldwell family had rented the banquet hall at the West Shore Yacht Club for the anniversary celebration. Elegant venue, harbor views, the kind of place that screamed old money and social respectability. Exactly the sort of environment where public embarrassment would sting the most. I'd been to dozens of events in this room over the years. Tessa loved showing me off at social gatherings, the successful husband, the provider, the man who made her lifestyle possible. Tonight, I'd be playing a different role. We arrived early to set up. Carson sweet-talked the venue coordinator into letting us test the audio-visual system for my toast. Ben uploaded his presentation to the venue's computer while I mingled with the early arrivals. "Miles!" Tessa's mother, Patricia, wrapped me in a perfumed hug. "Where's our girl? Still at the beach?" "She'll be here," I said. "Wouldn't miss your big night." Patricia beamed. She'd always liked me, saw me as a stabilizing influence on her sometimes dramatic daughter. That was about to change. The room filled up over the next hour. Extended family, church friends, colleagues from Harold's accounting firm. About 80 people total, all dressed in their Saturday evening best, all expecting a celebration of enduring love and commitment. Tessa and Jared arrived at 7:30, tanned and relaxed from their stolen vacation. She wore a black cocktail dress I'd never seen before, probably bought with my money during their romantic getaway. Jared stayed close to her side, his hand occasionally touching her lower back in a gesture that was supposed to look casual. She spotted me across the room and waved, her smile bright and artificial. I waved back, matching her energy exactly. "Miles!" She approached with Jared in tow. "You look handsome. New tie?" "Thanks. You look refreshed. Beach air must have agreed with you." It really did. Jared was just saying how much he needed that break. She glanced at her boss with obvious affection. Sometimes we don't realize how stressed we are until we step away from everything. Sometimes we don't realize a lot of things, I agreed, until we step away and get some perspective. Jared extended his hand. "Miles, thanks again for understanding about the vacation switch. I know it was last minute." His handshake was firm, confident, the grip of a man who thought he'd won something. I held his gaze for a moment longer than necessary. Don't mention it. Really. Don't. The formal program began at 8. Harold and Patricia took the stage for the traditional anniversary speech, thanking everyone for 35 years of friendship and support. They looked genuinely happy, genuinely grateful for the life they'd built together. I felt a momentary pang of guilt for what I was about to do. But then I caught sight of Tessa and Jared whispering together at their table, and the guilt evaporated. Carson gave me a subtle nod from the back of the room. Ben was positioned near the audio controls, trying to look casual while probably vibrating with excitement. "And now," Harold announced, "I'd like to invite my son-in-law Miles to say a few words. He's been part of our family for 12 years, and we couldn't be prouder of the man he's become." Scattered applause as I walked to the microphone. Tessa smiled encouragingly from her table, probably expecting the usual platitudes about love and commitment. "Thank you, Harold. Patricia." I looked out at the assembled crowd, friends, family, pillars of the community. I've been thinking a lot lately about marriage, about trust, about the promises we make to each other. Nods of agreement. This was familiar territory, the kind of speech they'd heard at dozens of similar events. Harold and Patricia have shown us what real commitment looks like. 35 years of choosing each other every single day, through good times and bad, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer. More nods. Tessa was still smiling, but something in her expression had shifted. Maybe she was picking up on my tone, the slight edge that hadn't been there in previous speeches. That kind of commitment requires honesty. Complete honesty, because marriage without trust is just... I paused, pretending to search for the right words. "Well, it's just an expensive roommate situation, isn't it?" A few chuckles from the audience. Tessa's smile was looking more forced now. "Which brings me to something I need to share with all of you tonight." I nodded to Ben, who clicked something on his laptop. The room's main screen lit up with a photo of the Emerald Coast Resort. Murmurs of appreciation. It was a beautiful place. This is where my wife Tessa spent this past week, the vacation I booked and paid for to celebrate our anniversary. The next slide showed the booking confirmation, with my name and credit card information clearly visible. The murmurs stopped. You could feel the energy in the room shifting, people sensing that something was wrong but not sure what. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to join her. She invited her boss Jared instead, said he needed the break more than I did. Now there was complete silence. 80 people holding their collective breath. The next slide was a screenshot of Tessa's social media post. Taking time to prioritize my mental health and step away from negativity. The photo of her and Jared loading luggage into his car filled the screen. I thought that was interesting phrasing. Step away from negativity. I wondered what kind of negativity she meant. I could see Tessa starting to rise from her chair, Jared's hand on her arm pulling her back down. Their faces had gone pale. Fortunately, technology helps us understand these things. For instance, email. The next slide showed Jared's message. Can't wait to have you all to myself for a full week. Miles has no idea what he's missing, or maybe he does, and he's just too weak to do anything about it. Gasps from the audience. Someone's wine glass hit the floor with a crash. And this one was particularly enlightening. Tessa's email to Maya appeared on screen. Miles barely reacted when I told him about the vacation switch. Jared was right. He's too passive to cause problems. The room erupted. Voices raised in shock and confusion. Harold's face had turned red. Patricia was staring at her daughter with an expression of pure betrayal. But I wasn't done. The most interesting part, though, was discovering that this wasn't just about a vacation. It was about money. My money. The final slide showed the bank transfer records. $215,000 moved from my business account to Tessa's personal investment fund over 18 months. Apparently, stepping away from negativity is expensive. Chaos. Complete chaos. Tessa was on her feet now, screaming something I couldn't hear over the crowd noise. Jared was trying to pull her toward the exit. Harold was shouting at both of them. Patricia had buried her face in her hands. I stepped back from the microphone and walked calmly toward the back of the room, where Carson was waiting with an expression of professional admiration. That, he said, was the most brutal thing I've ever seen, and I've seen some stuff. Think it was too much? For what she did to you? Not even close. Through the crowd, I could see Tessa and Jared pushing toward the exit. She turned back once, her face twisted with rage, and screamed something in my direction. I couldn't make out the words, but the intent was clear. Ben appeared at my elbow, practically bouncing with excitement. Did you see their faces? Did you see everyone's faces? That was amazing. That was just the opening act, I said, because the truth was I was just getting started. Sunday morning brought a flood of phone calls, text messages, and social media notifications. News of the anniversary party disaster had spread through our social circle like wildfire in drought season. My phone buzzed constantly with messages of support, expressions of shock, and barely concealed requests for more details. Everyone wanted to know what happened next, whether Tessa and I were getting divorced, whether criminal charges would be filed. I ignored most of them and focused on the important calls. The first was from Sandra Chen, my forensic accountant. Mr. Rellan, I've completed the preliminary analysis. We need to meet immediately. How bad is it? Worse than we discussed. Can you come in this morning? I met Sandra at her downtown office, a sterile space filled with filing cabinets and computer screens. She had printouts spread across a conference table like evidence from a crime scene. The $215,000 was just the beginning, she said, without preamble. There are credit cards you don't know about, investment accounts opened in her name using your social security number, even a second mortgage on your house that you apparently co-signed. I sat down heavily. How much total? Conservatively, 400,000, possibly more. Over what time period? 3 years. It started small, a few hundred here and there, but it escalated significantly after she began working for Jared Salas. You think he was involved? Sandra pulled up another document on her laptop. Jared's company paid for financial planning services from a firm called Strategic Asset Solutions. That same firm provided consultation to your wife about wealth preservation strategies during divorce proceedings. They were planning this for 3 years? It looks that way. The pattern suggests they were systematically moving your assets into positions where they'd be difficult to recover during a divorce settlement. I studied the paperwork, trying to process the scope of the betrayal. It wasn't just an affair or even simple theft. It was a coordinated campaign to destroy me financially while positioning themselves as the victims. What are my options? Legally, you have several. Criminal charges for fraud and identity theft, civil suits for conversion and breach of fiduciary duty. I can help you freeze the remaining assets and begin recovery proceedings. And realistically? Sandra's expression turned grim. Recovery will be expensive and time-consuming. They've had 3 years to hide money and create legal complications. Even if we win everything, you might spend more on lawyers than you recover. So, they get away with it? I didn't say that. I said legal recovery would be difficult. There are other approaches. Such as? Well, for instance, reputation matters in business. Jared's company depends on client trust. If word got out about his involvement in defrauding a client's husband... I leaned back in my chair, considering the implications. Sandra was suggesting a different kind of justice, the kind that played out in boardrooms and country clubs rather than courtrooms. What would that look like? Hypothetically, a comprehensive presentation of the evidence delivered to the right people at the right time. Jared's business partners, major clients, professional associations. Let them draw their own conclusions about his character. And Tessa? She's more vulnerable to social pressure. Her entire identity seems built around community standing and social connections. If those connections were to evaporate, it might be more devastating than any financial penalty. I thought about the chaos at the anniversary party, the looks of shock and disgust on people's faces. Tessa had spent years building her reputation as the perfect wife, the devoted community volunteer, the woman who had everything together. How would someone go about destroying that reputation? Carefully, systematically, with documentation and witnesses. Sandra smiled coldly. I imagine someone with your business background would understand the principles involved. I left Sandra's office with a new sense of purpose. The legal system might be slow and uncertain, but social justice could be swift and decisive. My first stop was the West Chase Community Center, where Tessa volunteered as coordinator for the annual charity auction. The event raised money for local schools and had become one of the area's premier social gatherings. Janet Morrison, the center director, greeted me with obvious discomfort. Miles, I heard about yesterday. How are you holding up? I'm managing. Actually, I wanted to discuss Tessa's volunteer position. Janet's expression became carefully neutral. Oh? Given the circumstances, I thought it might be appropriate for her to step back from her responsibilities, at least until things get sorted out. That's very considerate of you to think about the organization. I pulled out a folder of documents. I also thought you should know that some of the auction expenses from last year were paid through accounts that are now under investigation for fraud. Janet's eyes widened. What kind of investigation? The kind where money was moved without proper authorization. I'm sure it's just paperwork issues, but the liability implications. Oh my God, how much money? Enough to make the IRS very interested in how charitable funds were handled. That wasn't entirely true, but it didn't need to be. Janet's imagination would fill in the blanks, and by tomorrow, the entire volunteer board would know that Tessa Relin was a potential legal liability. My second stop was West Chase Elementary, where Tessa served on the PTA board. The school secretary, Mrs. Patterson, had known me for years through various fundraising events. I need to update our family's contact information, I told her. There have been some changes in our household situation. Of course. What kind of changes? Well, Tessa won't be participating in PTA activities for the foreseeable future. There are some personal issues that require her attention. Mrs. Patterson leaned forward conspiratorially. Is this about what happened at the anniversary party? My sister was there, and she said, I'd prefer not to discuss the details, but yes, there are trust issues that need to be resolved. Trust issues? I lowered my voice. Financial irregularities, money that was supposed to go to certain places but ended up somewhere else. Mrs. Patterson's expression turned scandalized. Nothing traveled faster through a school community than rumors about financial impropriety. Should we be concerned about any PTA funds? I'm sure everything is fine, but given the circumstances, it might be wise to have someone else handle any accounts Tessa had access to, just as a precaution. By the time I left the school, I knew that within hours every parent in the district would know that Tessa Relin was being investigated for financial misconduct. My phone rang as I was driving home. Carson. Miles, we need to talk. Tessa's been calling the police station claiming harassment. What kind of harassment? She says you're spreading malicious rumors designed to damage her reputation. I'm not spreading rumors. I'm sharing documented facts with people who have a legitimate interest in those facts. That's a fine distinction, and you know it. Are you telling me to stop? There was a long pause. I'm telling you to be careful. Revenge is satisfying, but it can also be expensive if it crosses certain lines. What lines? The ones that turn social consequences into legal consequences. You've made your point. Maybe it's time to step back and let the lawyers handle things. But I wasn't ready to step back. Not when Tessa and Jared were probably planning their next move, figuring out how to spin the situation to their advantage. That evening, I got a call from Ben. You need to see Tessa's latest social media post, he said. She's trying to control the narrative. I pulled up her profile. The post was long and carefully crafted. I'm heartbroken to address the malicious rumors being spread about me. Yes, I made the difficult decision to take space from my marriage to focus on my mental health. Yes, I accepted support from a friend during this challenging time. But the financial accusations are completely false and designed to punish me for seeking happiness. I'm consulting with attorneys about defamation and harassment. To those who know me, really know me, please remember that there are always two sides to every story. The post already had dozens of supportive comments from people who didn't know the full situation. Her strategy was becoming clear. Paint herself as the victim of a vindictive husband's smear campaign. She's good, Ben said. I'll give her that. She's not good enough, I replied. Not for what's coming next. Because I was done playing defense. It was time to go on the offensive, and I had just the venue in mind. Tuesday was the monthly meeting of the Tampa Bay Commercial Real Estate Association. 200 of the area's most successful business people, including several of Jared's biggest clients. I'd been a member for 8 years. Respected, well-connected, the kind of person whose word carried weight in professional circles. It was time to use that weight. The Tampa Bay Commercial Real Estate Association met the first Tuesday of every month at the Marriott downtown. 200 professionals gathering to network, share market intelligence, and conduct the kind of business that built careers and destroyed reputations. I'd been attending these meetings for 8 years, gradually building relationships with developers, investors, and business leaders throughout the region. Tonight, those relationships would serve a different purpose. I arrived early and positioned myself near the registration table, greeting colleagues as they checked in. Casual conversations, friendly inquiries about business and family, the kind of social lubrication that made professional communities function. Miles, Tom Bradley, a commercial developer, clapped me on the shoulder. Heard you had some excitement at a family event this weekend. Word traveled fast in Tampa's business circles. Nothing I couldn't handle. Good man. These things have a way of working themselves out. More people arrived, and I noticed the subtle shift in how they interacted with me. Sympathetic glances, supportive comments, the kind of treatment reserved for someone who'd been wronged but was handling it with dignity. Jared arrived 20 minutes before the meeting started, flanked by 2 associates from his marketing firm. He spotted me across the room and his expression tightened, but he maintained his professional composure. The formal program began with market updates and economic forecasts. I sat in my usual spot, 3rd row center, taking notes like any other meeting. But I was really watching the room, identifying the people who mattered most. During the networking break, I approached Richard Castellanos, CEO of Castellanos Development Group. His company was one of Jared's biggest clients, responsible for about 30% of his firm's revenue. Richard, good to see you. Miles, how are things? Complicated but manageable. Actually, I wanted to ask you something, confidentially. Richard's expression became more serious. In business, confidentially usually meant money was involved. What's on your mind? You use Solace Marketing for your campaigns, right? We do. They've handled our advertising for the past 2 years. Why? I pulled out my phone and showed him one of the bank transfer records Sandra had uncovered. I've been dealing with some financial irregularities. Money moved without my authorization. The investigation has turned up some interesting connections. Richard studied the document. What kind of connections? The kind that suggest my wife's affair with Jared Solace wasn't just personal. There's evidence of coordinated financial planning, systematic asset movement, even consultation with attorneys about divorce strategy. You think Solace was involved in defrauding you? I think Solace was planning to start a new life with my wife using my money. Whether that constitutes fraud is for lawyers to decide, but it raises questions about judgment and character. Richard handed back my phone, his expression troubled. How much money are we talking about? Over 400,000, according to my forensic accountant. Jesus Christ. The thing is, Richard, a man who would help steal from his employee's husband. What would he do to a client if the circumstances were right? That was the seed I wanted to plant. Not an accusation, just a question. Let Richard's imagination do the rest. I had similar conversations with 3 other major clients over the next hour. Each time I presented facts without drawing conclusions, asked questions without making accusations. Professional, measured, devastating. By the time the meeting ended, Jared's business relationships had been poisoned with doubt and suspicion. My phone buzzed with a text from Carson. Tessa's attorney called the station again. They're threatening a restraining order. I stepped outside to call him back. What kind of restraining order? The kind that prohibits contact and communication. They're claiming you're engaged in a campaign of harassment designed to destroy her reputation. I haven't contacted her at all. No, but you've been talking to a lot of other people, and those conversations are having consequences. What kind of consequences? She got fired from her volunteer positions, lost her spot on the charity auction committee. Even her book club doesn't want her anymore. I felt a surge of satisfaction. That's not harassment, that's social accountability. Miles, I'm your friend, so I'm going to be straight with you. You're walking a fine line here. Keep pushing, and you might find yourself on the wrong side of a lawsuit. Let them sue. I've got 400,000 reasons to countersue. That's not the point. The point is that revenge can become an addiction, and addictions destroy the people who have them. I understood Carson's concern, but he didn't understand the scope of what Tessa and Jared had done. This wasn't just about money or even adultery. It was about 3 years of systematic deception, manipulation, and theft. They'd planned to destroy my life and steal my assets. The fact that I'd discovered their plan didn't make me the villain. Wednesday morning brought news that Jared's marketing firm was restructuring their client services team. According to Ben, who had friends in the industry, 3 major clients had terminated their contracts overnight. Word is that Castellanos personally called Jared's partners and expressed concerns about ethical standards and professional judgment, Ben reported. They're probably going to force him out to save the company. How long before that happens? Days, not weeks. His partners can't afford to lose more clients. That afternoon, I got a call from Patricia Caldwell, Tessa's mother. "Miles, we need to talk." "Of course, Patricia. How are you holding up?" "Not well. Harold's been having chest pains since Saturday. The stress of all this." I felt a pang of genuine guilt. Harold was a good man who didn't deserve to be caught in the crossfire of his daughter's poor choices. "I'm sorry to hear that. Is there anything I can do?" "You can tell me what you want, what it will take to end this. I want my money back. I want acknowledgement of what was done to me, and I want assurance that it won't happen again." "What kind of assurance?" "The kind that comes from consequences. Real consequences that make it clear this behavior isn't acceptable." There was a long pause. "Miles, I know my daughter made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but this campaign of yours, it's destroying her." "She destroyed herself, Patricia. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. Please, she's my daughter. Whatever she did, she's still my daughter." The pain in Patricia's voice was real and heartbreaking, but it didn't change the facts. "I understand that. But she's also the woman who stole $400,000 from me while planning to divorce me and take half of everything else. Being someone's daughter doesn't excuse that." "What if she pays the money back?" "With what? She doesn't have a job anymore. Jared's about to lose his. Where exactly would $400,000 come from?" Another pause. "What if we sold our house? Harold and I could downsize, use the equity to make this right." The offer caught me off guard. Patricia and Harold had lived in their Carrollwood home for 25 years. It was their retirement security, their legacy. "Patricia, I can't let you do that." "Then what? What will it take?" I thought about it for a moment. What did I actually want? The money was important, but it wasn't really about the money anymore. It was about justice. It was about making sure that actions had consequences. "I want the truth," I said finally. "Complete truth. I want Tessa to publicly acknowledge what she did, apologize to everyone she lied to, and commit to making financial restitution." "And if she does that, you'll stop?" "I'll stop the public campaign. The legal issues will still need to be resolved, but I won't actively work to destroy her reputation anymore. I'll talk to her." But I knew Tessa well enough to predict her response. She'd never voluntarily admit wrongdoing or accept responsibility. Pride and self-preservation would prevent any meaningful acknowledgement of guilt, which meant this was far from over. Thursday evening, I got my answer. A text from an unknown number. "You want to play games? Let's play. But remember, I know things about you too. Things that could make your life very uncomfortable. Back off or find out what real consequences look like." T. I showed the message to Carson when he stopped by that evening. "She's threatening you now?" "Apparently. What could she possibly know that would worry you?" "Nothing. I've been completely faithful, completely honest about finances, completely transparent about everything." "Then this is just desperation." "Maybe. Or maybe she's planning something new." Carson studied the message again. "You know what this means, don't you?" "What?" "It means you're winning. People don't make threats from positions of strength. They make threats when they're cornered and running out of options. So what happens when a cornered animal gets desperate?" "That," Carson said, "is when things get dangerous." He was right. I'd been thinking of this as a chess match, careful moves and strategic positioning. But Tessa's threat suggested she was ready to flip the board and start a different kind of game entirely. The question was, how far was I willing to go to finish what she'd started? Friday morning brought an email that changed everything. Not from Tessa or Jared, but from someone I'd never heard of. Detective Lisa Rodriguez, Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, Economic Crimes Division. Mr. Relin, I'd like to schedule a meeting to discuss financial irregularities involving your wife and Jared Salas. We've received information suggesting a coordinated effort to defraud multiple parties. Please call at your earliest convenience. I stared at the message, trying to process the implications. Someone had filed a criminal complaint. But who? The answer came an hour later when Sandra Chen called. The state attorney's office contacted me yesterday, she said. Apparently, you're not Jared's only victim. What do you mean? Remember Strategic Asset Solutions, the financial planning firm that advised your wife? They've been running the same scam on other couples. Wives planning divorces, systematic asset concealment, coordination with certain attorneys to maximize settlements. How many couples? At least 6 that we know of. Total losses over $2 million. Your case was just the most recent and best documented. I felt a strange mix of vindication and nausea. Vindication because it proved this wasn't just personal betrayal, it was organized crime. Nausea because it meant other families had been destroyed by the same systematic deception. What happens now? Criminal investigation, grand jury proceedings. If they get indictments, your civil recovery becomes much easier. How long? Months, probably. But Miles, there's something else. The detective wants to use you as a cooperating witness. They need someone on the inside who can document ongoing criminal activity. What kind of documentation? Recorded conversations, email evidence, financial records. Basically, they want you to keep doing what you've been doing, but with law enforcement backing. The idea was tempting. Official sanction for my campaign against Tessa and Jared, with the full weight of the criminal justice system behind it. But it also meant prolonging the conflict, extending the pain for everyone involved, including Harold and Patricia, who didn't deserve to watch their daughter face criminal charges. I need to think about it. Don't think too long. The detective said Jared's been making inquiries about leaving the country. If he runs, the whole investigation becomes much more complicated. After Sandra hung up, I sat in my office staring out at the Tampa skyline. 6 months ago, my biggest concern had been closing a commercial lease deal. Now I was being recruited as an undercover witness in a multi-million-dollar fraud investigation. My phone buzzed with a text from Ben. Emergency. Tessa's at the office. She wants to talk. I found her in the lobby, looking nothing like the confident woman who'd casually announced her vacation plans 2 weeks ago. Her hair was disheveled, her makeup smeared, her expensive clothes wrinkled like she'd slept in them. Miles, we need to talk. My office or the conference room? Somewhere private. I led her to the conference room and closed the door. She sat heavily in one of the leather chairs, suddenly looking much older than her 34 years. I know about the criminal investigation, she said without preamble. Then you know this has moved beyond personal issues. I know you think I'm some kind of criminal mastermind, but I'm not. I made mistakes. Bad mistakes. $400,000 worth of mistakes? She flinched. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen? I was unhappy, Miles. Really unhappy. You were always working, always focused on deals and clients and building the business. I felt invisible. So you decided to steal from me? I decided to protect myself. The marriage counselor said I needed to think about financial security in case things didn't work out. What marriage counselor? We never went to marriage counseling. I went alone. Dr. Sarah Mitchell. She specializes in women's empowerment during relationship transitions. I made a mental note of the name. Dr. Sarah Mitchell was probably part of the larger conspiracy Sandra had described. And she advised you to steal from your husband? She advised me to secure my financial future. The specific methods were Jared's idea? Tessa's composure cracked slightly. Jared said you'd never notice. He said men like you were so focused on making money that you never paid attention to where it went. Men like me? Successful but oblivious, good providers but bad husbands. The casual cruelty of it hit me like a physical blow. Not just the theft, but the psychological framework they'd used to justify it. I was the villain in their story, the neglectful husband who deserved what happened to him. So this was all my fault? Not all of it. But Miles, you have to admit you weren't exactly present in our marriage. I was building a business. For us, for our future. For your future. I was just along for the ride. I studied her face, looking for signs of genuine remorse or responsibility. Instead, I saw self-pity and deflection, the same patterns that had defined our relationship for years. What do you want, Tessa? I want to make a deal. What kind of deal? I'll cooperate with the investigation. Tell them everything about Strategic Asset Solutions and Dr. Mitchell and the other couples, but I want immunity from prosecution. That's not my decision to make. But you have influence. The detective said you're their star witness. And in exchange for your cooperation, what happens to Jared? Her expression hardened. Jared can take care of himself. 2 weeks ago, you were ready to run away with him. Now you're willing to throw him under the bus? 2 weeks ago, I thought we had a future together. Then his business partners fired him. His wife filed for divorce, and he decided this was all my fault. So he abandoned you? He said I was too much liability for his exit strategy. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then I remembered the casual way she'd announced the vacation substitution, the months of systematic theft, the years of deception and manipulation. The answer is no. No to what? No deal, no immunity, no special treatment because you got betrayed by your partner in crime. Miles, please, I'm begging you. You had chances to be honest, hundreds of chances over 3 years. You chose deception every single time. I was scared. Of what? Of losing everything, of being alone, of starting over with nothing. So instead, you decided I should lose everything and start over with nothing. She had no answer for that. There's something else, I said. The detective wants me to wear a wire, record conversations with you and Jared, document ongoing criminal activity. Her face went pale. You wouldn't. Why not? You recorded our private conversations to use against me in divorce proceedings. Turnabout seems fair. That's different. How? Because I'm your wife. Were. You were my wife. Past tense. I stood up and walked to the door. Miles, wait. What if I can get the money back? All of it? From where? Jared has accounts in the Cayman Islands, money from all the couples from the other cases. If I cooperate with the recovery efforts, then cooperate. With the authorities, not with me. But you could put in a good word. Tell them I was helpful. I paused with my hand on the doorknob. Tessa, for 12 years I loved you. Completely, unconditionally, stupidly. I worked 60-hour weeks to give you the life you wanted. I trusted you with everything I had. I know. And you repaid that love by systematically stealing from me while planning to destroy me in divorce court. You turned our marriage into a criminal enterprise. I'm sorry. No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry the plan didn't work. But you're not sorry for what you did to me. I opened the door. The wire recording starts Monday. If you want to minimize the damage, I suggest you find a good attorney, one who isn't part of your conspiracy. I left her sitting in the conference room and walked back to my office. Through the window, I could see the Hillsborough River winding toward Tampa Bay, carrying debris from inland storms out to the open water. That's what this had been, I realized. A storm that cleared away everything I thought I knew about my life, leaving behind a landscape I barely recognized. But for the first time in weeks, I felt something approaching peace. Not happiness. That would take time. But a sense that justice, was finally within reach. My phone buzzed with a text from Detective Rodriguez. "Ready to proceed with the wire recordings?" I typed back, "Ready." Outside, storm clouds were building over the bay, promising rain before nightfall. But I wasn't worried about the weather anymore. I'd already survived the worst storm of my life. The rest would just be cleanup.